felt as though there was a very clear signal that don't expect from Mark Zuckerberg, at least, any endorsement, even though we might hear it from others in Silicon Valley and beyond.
Yeah, I don't think there's any upside to him endorsing someone at this point, right? I mean, it's sort of like that old Michael Jordan quote, Republicans buy sneakers too. It's like he's got a global platform. He's got, partners on both sides of the aisle. He's got advertisers on both sides of the aisle. And I think for someone in his position, there's just not really, I think what we saw in that clip is about as close as he's going to come to, saying something that sounds like an endorsement for either one of these guys.
Well, it's fascinating. This is what Trump said on Truth Social in March. I know you're familiar with this, Kurt, but it was in the context of whether or not he would get rid of TikTok. Facebook and Zucker will double their business. So Zuckerberg said something nice about Trump. I don't know that Trump shares the sentiment, but this is a issue in this cycle. TikTok, social media, big tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's some political savvy in what Mark Zuckerberg said yesterday, right? I mean, if the winds are indeed changing, obviously talked about a lot over the last week plus that it feels like Donald Trump is really taking sort of this election lead here. It's in Mark Zuckerberg's best interest to say something flattering or nice to the guy who may be president and who has threatened him and his company, right? And so I don't think that this was a off-the-cuff comment. I'm sure this was somewhat calculated in that regard. And this is going to continue to be a contentious relationship. I don't think, because Mark Zuckerberg said one nice thing about Trump, suddenly these two are going to be buddies. But, he's staring down the idea of 4 more years of a Trump presidency. And so I think he's sort of, starting to set a new tone maybe that we hadn't heard over the last couple of years.
But things can change. As we discussed on the show this week, Kurt, President Trump is now pretty close with Mr. Elon Musk. Yep. These people matter. They have influence in Silicon Valley globally.
They do. I mean, not only do they have the money, right? We talked about what Elon's doing in terms of his political donations and how impactful that can be, but they just have such a cultural influence over, they have fans, right? These are celebrity CEOs. And when they come out and say, in Elon's case, I endorse Trump, I'm giving money to Trump, that has a ripple effect to a lot of people who admire and respect what Elon says. And I think Mark Zuckerberg is the same way with a different audience, right? So these guys have such influence. That's why we care about what they say when it comes to politics.